At dinner, he raised a glass and said, "I'm proud of all my kids, except the useless one." Everyone laughed. I didn't. 2 years later, I sent him a copy of my pay stub. It had 6 zeros. I hadn't been home in 2 years. Not because I didn't want to, because every time I came back, I left feeling smaller. But this time, I told myself it would be different. Thanksgiving, a family holiday, everyone around one table. I even brought gifts. A smoked turkey I ordered from a fancy place in the city, 3 bottles of Merlot, and a brand new cashmere sweater for my dad, size L, navy blue, his favorite. I spent 8 hours on the road. I even stopped halfway to buy a handmade pie, pumpkin, with extra cinnamon. He used to say it was the only dessert worth eating. I parked the car behind the neighbor's house, so no one would see. I wanted it to be a surprise. I walked in quietly. They were already sitting around the table. My sister saw me first. She blinked, then whispered something to my mom. No one stood up. I placed the gifts on the kitchen counter. No one said thank you. I smiled. "Happy Thanksgiving," I said. Dad looked up slowly. He stared at me like I was an unexpected bill. "You're late," he said. I wasn't. They had started early, on purpose. I didn't say anything, just sat down at the end of the table. The seat with the broken leg, the one they never fixed. Dinner went on like I wasn't there. My sister told everyone about her promotion. She's a corporate lawyer now, makes 6 figures, has a fiancé who drives a Tesla. Mom clapped. Dad said, "That's my girl." He actually stood up to give a toast. "To hard work and real success," he said. Then he raised his glass and turned toward my brother. "And to Mark for buying his first house." They all cheered. I stayed silent. Then he said it. "I'm proud of all my kids, except the useless one." Everyone laughed. It was quiet, but not quiet enough. I didn't laugh. He looked straight at me. He didn't blink. I looked around the table. No one met my eyes. I stood up slowly, picked up the cashmere sweater, folded it back into the bag. "I'll take this back," I said. No one stopped me, not even my mom. She just took another bite of sweet potato casserole. I walked to the door. My heels made a sound on the tile, the kind of sound that feels louder when no one's talking. Before I opened it, Dad cleared his throat. "You know what your problem is?" he said. "You always think the world owes you something." I turned around. "I never asked for anything," I said. He snorted. "Exactly." Then he smiled, the kind of smile people make when they think they've won. "You'll never make it," he said. "You'll always be the disappointment." I looked at him for a long time. Then I nodded, and I left. I didn't cry in the car. I didn't scream. I just drove. It rained the whole way back, heavy, blinding rain, but my hands never left 10 and 2. I didn't call anyone that night. I just sat in my apartment, ate the pie I brought for them, alone. The next day, I transferred $3,200 to my sister's Venmo. She'd mentioned her car needed repairs. I knew she wouldn't say thank you, but I did it anyway. Because that's who I was, the child who still gave, even when no one noticed. 3 months earlier, I had paid off the last of Dad's mortgage, $72,000. No one asked me to. I just thought, maybe it would bring us closer. He never even said thank you, but I saw him post about it on Facebook, said he worked hard his whole life to pay off the house early. He didn't mention me. But that night, after Thanksgiving, something shifted. It was like my heart shut a door, quietly, no lock, no key, just closed. I didn't tell anyone what happened. I went back to work the next day, finished my code reviews, attended 2 back-to-back product meetings. On Slack, I joked with my coworkers like everything was normal. That weekend, I got a bonus, my first 6-figure quarter. I looked at the pay stub, $106,439.77. Gross, not net. But I stared at it for a long time, longer than I thought I would. It felt cold. I printed it out, folded it in thirds. No note, no letter, no explanation, just the check stub. I mailed it to my dad. The next family gathering was Easter. I didn't go. He called once, the night before, didn't leave a voicemail. I saw the missed call, watched the screen for 5 full minutes. Then I turned it off. A week later, my brother sent a group text, said Dad wanted everyone to come over for burgers. I didn't reply. Just read the message, let it sit. He followed up with, "You're being dramatic." I typed a response, then deleted it. I sent him a screenshot of my direct deposit history instead. No caption, no emoji. He didn't reply either. 2 days later, Mom called. She said, "Your dad's trying." I said, "So did I." Then I hung up. I haven't been home since, but sometimes I still think about the look on his face when he opened that envelope. And I wonder if he finally understood. Maybe not. But after that Thanksgiving, things got quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. No more family group chats, no calls, no guilt trips. And I didn't chase after them. For once, I let silence do the work. At the office, I picked up extra projects. Not because I had something to prove, because I had nowhere else to be. No dinners to rush home to. No birthdays to remember. No one checking in. I started going in on Sundays. No one asked me to. But I knew the servers needed updates, and no one ever wanted to touch them. So I did it. By February, I had automated the entire back-end deployment pipeline. By March, I was promoted, Senior DevOps Engineer, full remote, with stock options. I didn't celebrate, I just moved to a new apartment, a better one, with tall windows and a dishwasher that didn't leak. It was quiet there too, but it didn't feel lonely, not like before. One afternoon, I got a text from my cousin Emma, a photo, from a baby shower I wasn't invited to. Everyone smiling, balloons, cake. My mom standing in the middle, holding someone else's baby. She looked happy. I stared at the photo for a while. Then I noticed what she was wearing. The sweater I gave her 3 years ago. Back when I still bought her gifts. Funny, she threw me away, but kept the clothes. I didn't respond. I archived the message. Then I opened my laptop and finished writing a shell script to optimize our log rotation. 3 minutes later, my boss slacked me. "This is brilliant. Pushing it to prod today." I replied with a thumbs up. 2 months later, a recruiter from Singapore messaged me. Offered $180,000 base to relocate. Plus housing. I didn't take it, but it made me smile. I was never the favorite. Never the one they bet on. At family dinners, I was the quiet one, the quirky one, the one who always brought a laptop. I wasn't loud, I wasn't beautiful. I didn't drink wine or tell stories about courtroom wins. I just worked. And now it was paying off. But still, I kept thinking about the envelope, the one I mailed my dad, with the 6-figure stub. I never asked if he got it. But I know he did, because my brother messaged me a week later. "Is this real?" I didn't reply. A month after that, my dad sent me a Facebook friend request. I declined it. Then he sent another, and a message, "We should talk." I read it once, then again. Then I blocked him. I thought it would feel good, but it didn't feel like anything. That same week, my company held a virtual retreat. They sent everyone food credits and matching hoodies. We played games, laughed, shared screens. Someone asked, "What's the best thing you've done in the last year?" People said vacations, pets, weddings. I said, "I built something that doesn't need me." They asked what I meant. I told them my new deployment system runs itself now, every 10 minutes, like clockwork. No one claps for that, but it keeps everything running. Later that night, I ordered sushi for one, and worked on my resume. Not because I was leaving, just to remind myself what I'd done. The numbers surprised me. I'd increased uptime by 32%, saved the company $280,000 in downtime losses. They never put that in family group chats, but I did. I printed it all, my resume, my accomplishments, my W-2, folded it again, just like before, put it in another envelope, no return address, no letter, just the facts. I sent it to my mom this time. She never replied. But a week later, she posted on Facebook, praising her kids, said, "Proud to be a mom of 3 amazing children." 3, not 2. First time she included me in a post in over a year. She didn't tag me, but I saw it. I took a screenshot, saved it in a folder called Noise. That month, I got invited to speak at a Women in Tech conference. It was virtual. I wore a black sweater, simple, no makeup, just facts. I told them about growing up in a family where silence was louder than screaming, where success was measured by how well you stayed in line, and how I learned that sometimes the best revenge is just doing well. No one knows how to process that. Not when you don't rub it in their face, not when you just vanish and build. After the talk, one woman messaged me, said, "I think my dad still doesn't believe I do real work. You made me feel less alone." I didn't know how to answer, so I said, "Me too." Later, I checked the analytics on my blog. 1 new subscriber, an IP address from my hometown. I didn't say anything, but I knew it was him. He never believed in me, said I was just playing on the computer. Once, when I was 16, I showed him a website I built. He said, "Why would anyone pay you for that?" But now they were. And I didn't need him to understand, because success didn't need to be shouted. It just needed to be lived. I still haven't been back. Sometimes I think about driving home, just once, walking in quietly like I used to. Maybe saying nothing, maybe leaving a check on the table. But then I remember his voice. "You'll always be the disappointment." And I realize he was wrong, but summer came fast. It was the first one where I didn't even know when Father's Day was. I didn't check. The calendar was full, not with people, but with tasks, deployments, team reviews, a UX overhaul I was co-leading. One day I got a Slack ping. "Can you jump into this client call? They need someone who understands both infra and delivery." I wasn't supposed to be on that account, but I said yes. 30 minutes later, I was speaking to a Fortune 100 CTO about server load balancing. By the end of the call, he said, "You're sharp. We need more people like you." He CC'd my boss. The next day, I got a $10,000 spot bonus. I didn't tell anyone, not my family, not even my roommate. I just transferred $1,000 to Emma, the cousin who sent me the baby shower photo. She never thanked me. But 2 days later, she posted a photo of new tires on her Corolla. Caption said, "Some angels don't wear wings." I didn't like it. I didn't comment. But I saved the photo. Work kept growing. People started tagging me in project threads I wasn't even on. One senior engineer said, "If you want it done right, get her." Her. The girl who used to sit at the kids' table. The one they forgot at school once because they thought I rode the bus. I remembered that day like it was yesterday. I waited 3 hours by the flagpole. No one came. Eventually, a teacher drove me home. When Dad opened the door, he didn't even look surprised. He just said, "Should have said something." I was 9. Now at 29, I wasn't waiting by the flagpole anymore. I was building, not just for work, for myself. I hired a financial planner, started investing, diversifying. I bought a condo, all cash, downtown, 8th floor, corner unit. I didn't tell anyone, but somehow they still found out. It started with my sister. She called out of nowhere. "Hey, heard you moved." Her voice was light, almost fake friendly. I said, "Yeah." She waited. I didn't add anything. She asked, "Nice place?" I said, "It's clean." Pause, then, "Mom says you're doing well." I didn't reply. Another pause, then she asked, "What do you even do again?" I let the silence sit. Then I said, "I solve problems no one else wants to touch." She laughed, but it sounded tight. Then she said, "Dad's thinking of selling the house. Market's tough right now." I knew where this was going. I waited. Then she said it. "Do you think you could help?" I looked out the window. The city skyline was gold in the sunset. I said, "I already did." She was quiet. Then she muttered, "Right. The mortgage." Then she said something that almost made me smile. I think he forgot. Of course he did. $72,000. And he forgot. I didn't say anything. I just said, "I have a meeting," and ended the call. A week later, I got a letter, real paper, handwritten, from my mom. The handwriting looked smaller than I remembered. She wrote, "We didn't understand what you were doing. I think your father's ashamed." That was it. No apology, no warmth, just a statement. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. Didn't burn it, didn't reply, just let it sit. I had no rage left, no sadness either, just air, space. And I liked it that way. Some nights I walked the city by myself, just to feel how far I'd come. Once I passed a coffee shop with a father and daughter sitting at a window table. She was showing him something on her laptop. He was smiling, nodding. I kept walking. I didn't feel jealous, just aware that I used to want that. And now I didn't. At work, I was offered the chance to lead a global team. 10 countries, fully remote, total control. I said yes, and that was the beginning of something else. I got a personal assistant, a tax advisor, a small team under me. We started building tools, not for the company, for other companies, ours, side projects, licensing deals. My signature started showing up on legal docs. Founder, next to my name. I still wore the same shoes, still ate toast for dinner, still used the same cracked mug from college, but my life was different. One morning, I woke up to 427 unread emails. A blog post I wrote went viral. Quiet work in a loud world. People called me a genius, said I put their lives into words. One woman wrote, "My father said I was worthless." Now I'm a CTO. I never thought anyone else knew what that felt like. I read her message twice, then replied with 2 words, "I know." That night, I went through my phone, found an old photo from when I was 16. My dad standing next to my brother, holding a college acceptance letter. I was off to the side, holding the camera. You could barely see me in the reflection of the glass frame. I stared at it, then I deleted it, not out of anger, just because I didn't need it anymore. I wasn't off to the side now. I wasn't holding the camera. I was the one being watched. But the message came on a Thursday. I was between meetings, sipping lukewarm coffee, when my phone buzzed. A name I hadn't seen in 2 years. Dad. I opened it. It was just one line. "We're having a family dinner this Sunday. You should come." No apology, no explanation, just expectation, like nothing ever happened, like he hadn't stood up in a room full of people and said I was the useless one, like he hadn't slammed the door behind me that night, shouting, "You embarrassed us." I stared at the message, then I put my phone face down and went back to work. That night, I sat on my balcony, watching the city lights flicker like quiet sparks. The breeze was cold, but it didn't bother me. I wasn't angry, I wasn't even surprised, just numb. That's the thing about growing up in cold families. You learn to survive on silence, you learn to breathe underwater. And when someone tries to pull you back to the surface with fake warmth, you don't feel grateful, you feel nothing. Sunday came, I didn't go. I went to the bookstore instead, bought a hardcover I didn't need, sat in the corner with a tea I didn't even drink, just sat there, still, present, unbothered. At 6:42 p.m., my phone buzzed again. A photo, everyone at the table, smiling, even had a spot left open, next to my sister, empty chair, caption, "Wish you were here." I didn't reply, I just stared at the photo, and noticed something. My brother was wearing a watch I'd given him years ago, back when I still gave gifts. He'd never thanked me for it, but he still wore it. Interesting? That week I gave a talk at MIT, small audience, bright minds. After the session, one student came up and said, "You're the reason I switched majors." I nodded, didn't know what to say. I was still getting used to being seen. The next morning, I flew to Tokyo, met with 3 startup founders, signed a consulting deal, 6 figures, 3 months of work. No one knew. Back home, the texts kept coming. From Mom, then my sister, then finally, Dad. He wrote, "I didn't handle things well. You've done well. Come home." I read it 5 times. My heart didn't move. I wasn't home anymore. Hadn't been for years. I took a screenshot, saved it, then archived the chat. Later that day, I wired $10,000 to a scholarship fund. Under someone else's name. I didn't want credit, just closure. The kind of closure you don't ask for, the kind you build yourself. Weeks passed. I stopped checking my family's social media, stopped wondering if they thought of me. I knew they did, but I also knew it didn't matter. One morning, I walked into a meeting with 3 VCs. They asked how I built what I did, without any backing, without connections. I said, most people build out loud. I built in silence. They nodded. Then one said, that's rare. Usually the quiet ones fade away. I looked at him and said, sometimes the quiet ones just learn to echo louder. He smiled. We signed the deal the next day. I didn't celebrate. I went home, fed my cat, took off my shoes, sat on the floor, and remembered the last thing my dad said to me face to face. You're not like your brother, you're a disappointment. It echoed for years until it didn't. Now, it's just a sentence I no longer believe. Sometimes people ask if I've forgiven him. I say, there's nothing to forgive. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I don't need anything from him anymore. Not his love, not his pride, not even his words. I gave him everything once, $72,000, years of silence, loyalty. He gave me back one thing, a reason to leave. And leaving was the best thing I ever did. They always said I was too quiet, too soft, too strange. They were right. But I was also the one they now whisper about. The one they wish they understood. Too late. Because I'm not the girl at the kids' table anymore. I'm not waiting by the flagpole. I'm not standing on the sidelines, holding the camera. I'm the one they don't know how to reach. And I like it that way. Because silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's strategy. And sometimes it's revenge.